Hello and welcome back to the Elite Football Show. My name is Haider and I'm your host as ever today. We're back for another player analysis show because you guys absolutely loved the last one we did on Moises Caicedo, which funny enough looks like he's going to Brighton. And Jeremy's a Brighton fan as well. So, if there's any Brighton fans watching this, definitely check out the Caicedo video I did with Simon Edwards because it was absolutely fantastic. And it looks like Brighton will possibly be getting a fantastic player. But as I said, I've got Jeremy Smith back on the podcast, probably for the fourth time now, Jeremy. I've got to give you some sort of stash or something because you're an unofficial member of the Elite Football Show. But today we'll be talking about Boubakary Soumare because there seems to be a notion about him that he can go and walk into a top side in Europe and that he's the next best thing. But actually, 99.9% of the people, Jeremy, have never seen him play. So that's why you're here to provide your expert opinion. Jeremy, welcome back. How are you doing today? And tell me a little bit about Soumare, sort of his background and what sort of player he is.
Hi, I'm good, thanks, apart from increasing rumours about Bissouma leaving at some point. We'll get to that another time. Soumare, it's a weird one. I think we've sort of joked around in the past, maybe more about Ibrahim Sangare, who was at Toulouse. He's now at I think PSV. I know, certainly at the time, Southampton fans were very excited when they thought they were going to sign Sangare, and the whole time I was saying I think Ibrahim Diallo is actually better. We'll see how it goes, but he certainly had a great match against Liverpool. And Soumare is kind of similar in terms of all the hype. And as you said, I on one side, I get it because you watch him, certainly, if you look at sort of highlights reels on YouTube, which obviously always pick out the best bits anyway, there's no doubt there's a hell of a lot of potential there. But he's still a kid who hasn't played that consistently or that often for Lille. And so it's bizarre to me. I don't know if this is like a FIFA thing that people base it on that rather than actually seeing the players. But I understand why people think he could be great, but he's certainly not worthy of the fuss that people are making and we desperately need to sign him. On what basis? And there's nothing to suggest that he's going to sort of, top of the table now. There's nothing to suggest he's the type of player who's going to make sure you're still there in May, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the strange thing. I mean, I said that, like you said, Sangare is another one. There's quite a few players that fans, it's definitely a FIFA thing. It's definitely a championship manager thing where people see a player with a lot of potential and then they translate that obviously to real life. But when I looked at Soumare, I mean, look, I've seen him play more than a lot of other people have. I like the way Lille have been doing this sort of the business. Obviously, Campos is gone now. But what I liked about Soumare was that clearly there's a lot of raw ability there, isn't there? I would say he's more of he's still a rough diamond in that respect. I think there's a lot of good attributes there. But if you look at how many games he's played this season, I believe he's played at 10 out of 23. Maybe that's changed. I think there's been a few games since I last checked. But he's not a starter for a start. So the idea that he's going to go to Manchester United or another big club and start straight away is ludicrous, isn't it? So are you able to just tell the listeners, firstly, what his strong attributes, in terms of, is he a carrier? Is he a good carrier of the ball? Is he a good passer? And what are the weaknesses to his game? Because I think, like I said earlier, he is raw. And to come into the Premier League, let's say if he does come in, it's going to take a bit of time to adjust. He won't play week in, week out.
This is the thing. I think he can, again, it's all raw, but he can do a bit of everything. Like he's big, he's strong, he's comfortable on the ball. He can break lines with the ball at his feet. He's got a nice range of passing, slightly more defensive minded. He's a good tackler. He doesn't seem to show much sort of attacking intent. So I'd say sort of either a defensive midfielder or certainly potential to be a really good box-to-box player. But it's all raw. And so, as I said, that there's potential there. You could look at him and say, well, he's a future Vieira, for example. But all of those aspects need improvement. And certainly in terms of concentration, in terms of game management, in terms of attitude on the pitch and arguably off it, I'll come to that in a sec, there's a lot of improvement there. And yeah, someone who, you could bring him in and sort of have him as a bit part player or a squad player. And, I'm sure at United, there's a lot of people who are able to gradually get the best out of him, but he's nowhere near the finished article yet. And at Lille, basically, he was kind of in and out of the side, or sort of making his way into the squad over the last couple of seasons. Then last season, the first half of the season, he actually played quite a lot, started a lot, played a lot. And then, the season before, rather, then there was this whole sort of aborted move to Newcastle. And it looked like it was going to happen, and then it fell through right at the end. And there was a lot of sort of blaming on both sides, with Soumare saying, I never wanted to leave, you were trying to push me out. And Lille sort of saying, well, hang on, your agent was kind of touting you around the whole of Europe. You can't have it both ways, sort of thing. And there's probably a bit of truth to both sides. But the fact is, after that, he was a lot less in the side. And this year as well, he's played most matches, but he's started less than half. Most of them are coming on as sub. And yes, Lille have got, they're purring at the moment. They're doing very well. They've got in midfield, obviously, like Renato Sanchez, who is coming back to his best under Lille. He's got Benjamin Andre, who's one of those sort of typically underrated Ligue 1 servants kind of thing. So there are good players in front of him. But the fact is that, aborted transfer or not, whether it's his fault or not, Galtier felt that he was not expendable, but, certainly not someone that I absolutely have to have in my first team, no questions asked. And so that means that for the last year or 18 months or so, to an extent, he hasn't really been given enough opportunity in the first team, or maybe he hasn't been giving himself enough opportunities in training or whatever to push on. So he's still that raw player with all that raw potential that we saw a year or 18 months ago, and there hasn't yet been any progression.
That's very interesting. Let's talk about those off-field things. So, every single summer, last time we spoke in the summer, actually, didn't we? We did a transfer special, and every single summer, you seem to hear Soumare's name. Chelsea apparently were interested. That was the rumours. Obviously, United are being linked. I know perhaps he said United interested, but it doesn't seem like there's going to be a move for him. But he's being touted around Europe. A lot of fans asking, well, only Newcastle went in for him. So obviously he's not that good. I don't understand the thinking, because it just doesn't make sense. It's very binary, isn't it? Oh, if that team's going for him, that shows his level. That's not how it is. But is it a case of he didn't get his move to a bigger club, so he's just shut down, and now he's actually displaying perhaps maybe sulking a little bit? Or is that a little bit harsh? Is he just a young player and you go up and down in your form, and, these things happen when you're a young player?
I think it's harsh. The last year or so has been so disrupted football-wise, certainly in France, with last season finishing a little bit early. And Lille themselves, I wouldn't have said up and down, but sort of 2 years ago, they finished second. Then last year, they sort of struggled to get back into the season with the Champions League, and trying to think which player left. Was it Pepe that summer? There's always players leaving. And in the end, they were unlucky probably not to finish in the top three. I reckon if the season had finished, they'd have finished ahead of Rennes. This season, they're obviously having arguably a really good sort of title tilt. So there's always the inconsistencies of being at a French club, which has got very much a selling model. So there's always disruption, and there's the additional disruption of COVID and the way that's affected football. So I don't necessarily think that he hasn't shown any clearly bad attitude. It's just that, there were hints of either him or probably more likely his agent making trouble at the time of that aborted transfer. And since then, I guess he just hasn't shown enough football-wise to kind of make himself an indispensable first-team starter. But like I said, he's always been in and around the team, and he is starting sort of more or less half the matches this year. So, and I think there has been improvement this year from sort of since that aborted Newcastle move. So I think he's getting back to his best. He's playing for France under 21s as well. So I think it is a case of, if he gets a good run in the team, he can probably really sort of build on all those skills that he's got. But it's sort of chicken and egg, But maybe attitude-wise, maybe I was a little bit unfair to say that. It's just that, I suppose maybe you could compare him to Ndombele. I think it's just the style, the way that he plays. He's another one where it looks like he doesn't care. So when he's having a bad game, it's all a bit accentuated. Yeah, Pogba as well.
It's an easy narrative, isn't it? That if they're not busting a gut like when Rooney did, charging up and down the field, making tackles left, right, and centre, they've got an attitude problem. They're lazy. I think it's a really unfair brush that these players get tarred with. I seem to see it seems to happen a lot with French players. If I'm being honest with you, that's maybe the English game, the British game. There's a lot of emphasis on someone run around like a headless chicken rather than be a little bit more composed, conserving your energy, using it correctly. I mean, that's how I see it. I think the fact that someone runs around, the fact that someone's athletic means absolutely nothing. It's about that, your footballing brain. You got to have the application. But that is a British problem. We could talk about that for hours. But let's move on to his best position, because Lille play 4-4-2. That's another thing that it boggles my mind with United fans. Oh, he's going to come in and play the Matic role as a holding defensive midfielder in the 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3 in the single pivot. And from what I've seen of him, he doesn't play that position. 4-4-2, I've seen him play more box to box. I've seen him carry the ball quite well. He's obviously athletic. He's got, like you said, good passing range. But would he be able to play a holding role? So let's say that Paul Pogba does stay and United want to upgrade on the defensive midfielder. Matic is going on a little bit. Could he play as more of a 6, holding position, screening the back 4, allowing Pogba to go forward, or let's say Van der Beek? Or would he be actually the Pogba replacement? So Pogba, let's say he leaves and he's playing more of a box-to-box. He's going forward. He's playing more like a number 8. He's holding when he needs to hold, going forward when he goes forward. Is that more in tune with his game? Or is he talented enough to learn either role?
I think he's probably got the talent to play either. I think he can, like I said, he is a good tackler. I think he certainly could just play as that defensive shield, and even from that position, sort of, a bit like a quarterback, just ping the balls over the top. But I think he's at his best when he's sort of breaking from deeper and like I said, breaking through lines with the ball. He's very comfortable dribbling and bringing the ball forwards. I think it would be a shame to sort of take that out of his game. So for me, proper box-to-box player, but I think he has got the capability, if he can sort of maybe improve his reading of the game and his concentration, to play that holding role.
Very interesting. And in terms of the price, I mean, look, French football's in disarray. Are you able to talk about that a little bit and what's going on there? I know that there seems to be, is it the TV deal? I know someone said the other day that Amazon need to come in, or someone like that, one of these big streaming services. Obviously, there's a lot of disarray going on. There's some really, really good talent in Ligue. I think especially the British teams could go in and pick off some great talents. But what is the price sort of being bandied around? And would it be good business if United went in and bought him in the summer? Because it's not going to happen in January. I know there's interest there. I think fans want to see a player like him come in. But for me, I just think he's going to come in and still be a rotation option. I don't think he starts. A lot depends on what happens with Paul Pogba as well.
I think at the moment, definitely a rotation player. Like I said, sort of good enough to be around the first team, but not good enough to build a team around, if you know what I mean. So for the right price, I think he's definitely a good player to bring in because, as I said, he's got all the raw materials. If someone can sort of polish him, then he's going to be, a really awesome midfielder and a potential full France international. Lille, like I said, that their project, like most French teams, are very much selling. A lot of that was sort of based on Campos being there and finding the next big stars. So with him not there anymore, I think it's going to be quite a disrupted summer for Lille anyway. I can't see Galtier staying beyond the summer, to be honest, either. So, and obviously with new ownership, they're not in a fantastic, although they're sort of in a very good place if you look at the league table, I'm not sure they're in a great place in general. So I think there'll be a few players looking to leave in the summer, and I suppose it could go either way with him. If some of those more established first teamers leave, then it could be his chance for the team to be built around him, or more likely, especially if his agent has anything to do with it, he'll be looking for a move to the Premier League. So then I think it just depends on price. I mean, Lille have obviously got a lot of money the last couple of years from the likes of Osimhen and Pepe, and it's debatable, Gabriel as well. It's debatable whether any of those players are necessarily worth the amount they went for. So a lot of it is down to negotiation. I mean, French clubs like sort of, particular fee with add-ons according to appearances and internationals and all that kind of thing. And maybe that's the best way to go with him. Sort of, I don't know. I'm not good at sort of working out figures, but 20, 30 million with potential to rise depending on how his career goes. But certainly knowing Lille under the previous leadership, they would be looking for a lot more than that. Knowing Lille at the moment, who knows anymore? So I think there's definitely a deal to be done. And as you said, especially with the issues with the TV rights in France, but basically the French clubs have lost a lot of revenue, partly obviously because of gate receipts, but mainly the TV deal. Cynical people, including me, would say that the reason that the league finished early last year was nothing to do with, well, obviously partly to do with COVID, but it wasn't health concerns. It was so that, we could sort of draw a nice line under the previous TV contracts and start afresh with the new one at the beginning of the new season. That's gone completely wrong because various reasons, but basically MediaPro weren't able to sort of meet their commitments, and now it's a mess. And Canal Plus are probably going to end up with some kind of deal, but obviously nowhere near at the level that was originally signed with MediaPro, and the clubs are not going to get the kind of money that they were banking on. So, as you said, I don't think there's going to be these big fire sales that some people are expecting in January, but I think in the summer, depending on how things are or aren't resolved, there's going to be a lot of players available. And then again, I mean, I'm hoping for the French club's sake that they go for their proper values, but I'm sure there's going to be some really good deals there to be done.
Yeah, that's absolutely spot on. Last question, Jeremy, before we wrap up. Renato Sanchez obviously is at Lille, and he's someone that very highly rated before he went to Bayern Munich. Wasn't a good move at all. Went to Swansea, was shocking, but I've always been a massive fan. I think he's a really talented player. I think we're starting to see him come back to that player that we saw sort of pre the Bayern Munich days. But would he be a better option for these sort of clubs? I know Liverpool were interested in him, and I know he was of massive interest for United under Louis van Gaal. Obviously, he went to Bayern Munich. Is he the sort of player perhaps that United should be looking at, or other bigger clubs should be looking at, as opposed to Soumare?
So as a France fan, I'm really worried about Sanchez, because last time Lille saved the career of a dodgy Portuguese player, he scored the winner against France in the Euro final, and France and Portugal were in the same group again. He's definitely getting back to his best, and the fact that he's doing it with, with all due respect to Swansea, I think Lille it's probably fair to say he's a bigger club than Swansea, if not obviously as big as Bayern. So it's good that he's doing it for a high-profile club, challenging for honours domestically, playing in Europe as well, which shows that maybe, but the Bayern move, I don't know if it was just too soon or he got a bit too big for his boots. But I suppose in terms of, although there was that blip in between, you can say that Sanchez has been playing at a higher level for longer. So he should be a sort of safer bet than Soumare. Again, there's less sort of polishing to do there, because we've already seen that he can show those skills on a consistent basis. The only question is, the one time that he's moved to a really big European marquee club, for whatever reason, he wasn't able to do it then. So, is the same problem going to occur again? I suppose in that sense, maybe it remains to be seen, but sort of Memphis Depay is the player that springs to mind. And, is he still at Lyon? Because again, those sort of really elite European clubs are looking at what he did or didn't do at United, and they're worried about that. But, Sanchez now sort of more mature in his prime. It makes more sense, I think, to go for him if you want someone who's immediately got the potential to settle as a first team regular.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's some talents to pick off. Depay, I'm still unsure. I feel like he's found his level. But if it's quoted at 5 million euros, I believe, or something crazy like that, then I think he's definitely worth a punt for a lot of teams. Jeremy, thank you for joining me today. We will be doing a Basuma podcast as well, so make sure you check out for that. Jeremy, where can everyone find your fantastic work and your articles?
So I'm on Twitter at JeremySmith98, and I'm generally podding on French Football Weekly, and either podding or writing for Get French Football News.
Absolutely fantastic. Jeremy's a really, really great guest that comes on the podcast, guys. Give him a follow. He's the man I go to whenever I want to speak about any French talent or know anything about Ligue 1. Guys, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We've just hit 1K as well, subscribers. So we are growing. We're doing more of these player analysis shows. Make sure you give us a follow as well on Twitter. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you prefer to listen to us and not to see my face 5 times a week. So make sure you do that. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.